let's talk about copying arrays. There's a couple of ways that you can copy arrays in C#. And since they are reference types, you have to be aware of some of the downsides to copying arrays. So let's go ahead and create a new int of arrays. Let's go ahead and do nums is equal to, and I'll go ahead and create a 5-element array here. Now let's go ahead and create a int more nums is equal to new int, and then the size of this, I will go ahead and say nums dot length. So I'm creating a new array here, more nums, and that will be the size of whatever nums is. And so now let's go ahead and set this equal to each other. So normally if things are stored by value, you could say more nums is equal to nums, and that will take the value in nums and then store it into the more nums area. And this kind of works with arrays, and a lot of you are probably familiar with this, but let's go ahead and do a for each, and I'll do I in more nums. And so because I put a var there, writer is actually saying, hey, that's actually an int. That's fine. Console.write line, and then I will just write out I. Actually, I'm going to put this all in one line, so let's go ahead and do this. And then string interpolation, curly brace, I, space, there. That way it's just printing them all out into one line. So now let's go ahead and run this, and notice that we get all 5 numbers there, and we're going through more nums. So it looks like it actually copied it. But let's go ahead and modify a number in nums. Nums, square brackets, 2 is equal to 42 now. So I'm changing the value right here to 42. Now, normally when you set a variable equal to another variable, it changes it in that one, but it does not change it in that one. But because arrays are reference types, if I run this exact same code here to go over more nums, notice that more nums, let me go ahead and put a new line there so it's a little bit more clear. Console.write line. Notice that the first time I run this, I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the second time, notice that even though I'm going through more nums, the element right there, which was a 3, is now a 42 in both nums and more nums. So this does not actually copy arrays from one array to another array. Really what this does is these are both objects on the stack, and those objects are a pointer to the actual array on the heap. When you do something like this, it is actually taking both objects, and both objects are pointing to the exact same location on the heap. And it's really just setting the memory addresses or the destination memory address equal in both of these locations. So instead, we need to copy these somehow. And so now if we go ahead and look at some of the various ways we can copy it. So instead of doing this, and I'm going to leave more nums to be the same size as nums, let's just go ahead and say something like this. Nums is equal to nums, square brackets, dot dot. Notice that this is grabbing a slice from nums, or a range of values from nums, storing it in more nums, and actually I'm telling it to just grab everything. And so I'm going to leave everything else here exactly the same. And so now when we run this, notice that more nums does not change even though we change nums. So this is one way we can copy, and that's a relatively easy one to type. Another one we can do, I'm going to go ahead and comment that out. We can go ahead and say nums dot, and if we look down here, there is a copy to. So if we do copy to, copies all the elements of the current one-dimensional array to the specified one-dimensional array. So let's go ahead and do copy to, and just say more nums. And so we need to give it an array that we want to copy to. Apparently it can be null. And we need to give it an index. The index is specified as a 32-bit integer. Yeah, starting at the specified destination array index. So we want to copy it to index 0 in more nums. So let's go ahead and run this. And notice that, again, those two are exactly the same. So this is another way to copy it. Oops. The third way is we can do array. So we're calling the class array dot, and there is a copy in here. And this copy in here, you need to give it a source array, a destination array, and then the length of what you're going to be copying. So our source array is nums, our destination array is more nums, and the length that we're going to be passing in is going to be, well, the length of nums. And so now if we run this, again, we get the same output here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even though we're changing nums there. So all three of these methods will copy a one-dimensional array to another one-dimensional array. And they all have pros and cons, and they all have their uses. This is very, very simple to write. I mean, really, nums, square bracket, dot, dot, square bracket. Can't get much more simple than that. Problem is, this is very, very slow. In fact, it is many, many times slower than these two ways of doing it. These ways are probably easier. This is calling the class itself. This is calling a member function on nums, which is an array, but these two should be comparable in speed. The syntax is just going to be a little bit different. Use this only if you don't care about speed, which is almost never, but this is a way you can do it. Now I mentioned that this is doing a shallow copy. What do I mean by that? So a shallow copy means that it is only copying the first level of this. It is possible to, inside of here, you have another array. And we'll talk about multi-dimensional arrays in the next video. But if you have another array inside of here, it's not going to copy that array as well. In fact, what it's going to do is it's going to copy the pointer to that array, and you still get to the same problem. In Python, you can import a copy library, and then you get access to what's known as deep copy, and that actually recursively goes through and copies until there is nothing more to copy, and it creates an actual copy of the array and everything inside of there to a new array. C# unfortunately does not have that. It only has these shallow copy ways of doing it, which works for most stuff, but do be aware that if your array happens to be more complex than just values inside of there, and it actually has, say, objects which are reference types inside of there, then these are not actually going to create a true copy of it. It will still be a reference to that reference type.